In the end, Glimmery did not make her work for long. A few hours in and he ordered her away, much to the disgust of the other serving girls, who whispered lurid things behind their hands. The royals of both houses, those of Alpin and Diffenwil, ate and drank copiously. King did his best to look exalted at their victory, yet to Osric still seemed like a man in pain. On his right sat Domhnall, sharing quip and anecdote. To his left, Constantine sat sullenly, his face in his usual sulky expression. A little further along their warriors sat, Sainid in the center looking proud and laughing with the men, holding a flagon of ale up a little in toast. As Osric poured more ale for them, he drew up a hand for the flagon and brushed hers. It was the fire behind her, consuming Norse shields, Osric told herself, that had made her cheeks warm, nothing else. 88,888,888. She awoke, some hours later, to a noise. Far away, up the corridor, something creaked. Osric lay with her eyes open in the darkness. The celebration, that was it, Osric told herself, as a cheering erupted far away in the direction of the courtyard. No, this was another sound, soft and rhythmical. Reluctantly, Osric drew back her blankets and moved as quietly as she could to her door, then on to the corridor. Yes, it was coming from Constantine's room. Yes, it sounded as if he was crying. Osric felt her heart sink. If this was a trick, she would be most annoyed, especially as she was on cockle collecting duty the next morning. The sniffing stopped. Was it a trick? Hand close to the latch of Constantine's door, she made to turn the handle. But, all sounded still. Maybe she had been mistaken. But no, there was no mistake. Constantine sounded as if he was quietly sobbing to himself. Osric turned the handle. It clicked. "Leave me alone." His voice sounded tired, lost. Osric crept further in. In the moonlight, Osric saw his face, tear-coursed and crinkled in fury. "Come here," he demanded, sliding the blanket away and stalking towards her. "Come and lie down next to me." "Constantine, I'm tired," Osric said. He was angry, that she could tell. "You must come," he insisted. "It is an order. You are my companion, the king said so, the moment I wake up till the moment I go to sleep. I am not asleep, Osric." He paced towards her. Osric folded her arms. Then, as Constantine approached, he held out a hand, pityingly. She took it and he led her to the bed. "You must be tired after that long day of fighting." His voice was guarded, closed. "You will sleep here." "Okay," Osric agreed, and she held out her other hand to take his. Instead, Constantine pushed her back onto the fleece-soft mattress, his hands groping for her body. Osric struggled free and jumped to her feet. "You absolute idiot!" Osric shouted. But the look on Constantine's face was one of bitterness. "You took my honor away." He paced towards her, but Osric was not easily moved. She stared back at the boy as he advanced on her. "You conspired to keep me from glory. With my father. To keep you from death." Osric shot back. "You will be a fine warrior someday, Constantine, you need to live to become that man. I know what you did. Domhnall knows that you fought instead of me." "How?" "He just does. He wants to hump you. So does Sainid." "No man will," Osric began, but Constantine put his hand over her mouth, his other around her back, wrestling her to his bed, pressing down onto her body with his. Osric won their duels because she was swifter and could move fast to avoid blows, and evade attack, and because he didn't try. But Constantine was stronger. His hands sought under her woolen undergarments for her skin, his hand pressing onto the wound on her arm. "Stop it, Constantine!" Osric shouted, wrenching her arm free. "It hurts." Vapors of spirit diffused around them as Constantine breathed in her face. "Today it is my birthday. I am 12, the right age to be a warrior. My father thought I fought superbly, and he drew me to him as a man, and he gave me the welcome water that a man gets on the night of his first battle. I drank it, and feel so foolish. Stop it, Constantine. Is this a trick? I don't like your tricks. Osrith wriggled under his weight, but it was no use. It was clear what he intended to do, as his hand sought between her legs. Osrith had sworn she would fight anyone who wanted to hump her. But with Constantine, it was different. They were Osrith and Constantine, who fought like a bag of cats. She made herself relax. It doesn't hurt if you relax, one serving girl had told another when she thought Osrith was out of earshot. Then something hard pressed inside her body, once, twice, several times. She felt nothing, apart from a little discomfort as Constantine pushed himself up and down, up and down. Why did people choose this? It was no wonder men had to trick women into it. Her mind thought instead about the battle, and the power of the conquest and the glory of the victory. 88,888,888. It was still night when Osrith woke from her sleep. She was next to Constantine, who was still asleep. She closed her eyes again. But the same insistent shaking of her shoulder, and Constantine's, could not be ignored. Finally, Sainid's deputy, in desperation to rouse them, then began pulling the blankets off them. His eyes narrowed when he saw Osrith, for it was clear it was just Constantine he needed. You are to come, he told Constantine, who was pulling on his clothes. Yes, be prepared. Your father requires you and Domnall in the throne room. Come on, Osrith. Constantine chided, when she hadn't moved. Come with me. 88,888,888. But the king was not on the throne waiting for Constantine. Indeed, only his cousin, Domnall, was there. Your father wished to tell you himself, Domnall said. There is plan to get you and I out of the country and over to our aunt's kingdom. Constantine stared at his cousin, probably through the effects of recovering from the welcome water. Then, he stared into the distance. The sight before them made him gasp. Osrith started too, at the sight of the king. My son, the king managed. There is a plot, a plan to seize this throne. He shuffled over to Constantine, looking critically at Osrith. You are both to go, to Loch Lomond and the sea beyond, exiled from this kingdom. Malmuir waits for you in Deir, the home of our beloved Sentgal Umber. This was a shock. Surely a plot of such magnitude could have been anticipated and stopped. What about Osrith? Constantine demanded. I'm not going without her. He seized Osrith's arm and pulled her close, as if his life depended on her. You said she was my guard. There are you Aineel in Ireland. Domnall said they are murdering bastards. You are a new Aineel yourself, the king smiled, amused, though with much pain on his face. Several generations passed. Your aunt Malmuir is married to the king of the Aineel. Then I'll need her. Constantine persisted, as if his father's words were the justification to his decision. Looked at Osrith critically, as if he was seeing her for the first time in his life. His eyes lingering on her body, dressed as she was still in her wool undergarments in the way her uncle used to sometimes, half judgmental with a sneer on his face. Then, he shifted in pain against his throne. And I want to come. Osrith hissed the words by Constantine's shoulder. In response, he gripped her forearm tighter and stared back to his father. A steel in his eye which Osrith would come to know much better. He was immovable. Clearly the king knew it too and nodded very slightly, almost imperceptibly, and Constantine turned to Osrith and for the first time since she had known him, smiled at her. Get ready. Now. Prepare, said Domnall. We travel west, through the valley. We are going promptly, but leisurely, to make it seem as if we are on progress following our outstanding victory over the Norse. A boat awaits us beyond Loch Lomond. Domnall turned and bent over her. Can you ride a horse, Osrith? Domnall said, when she had all that she needed. There had been no time to get her silver, but she had at least got fed a sword from the armory, stepping over the comatose bodies of household warriors, who were littering the guardhouse. She shook her head. No time to teach you now, said Domnall. Go, into the wagon cart. He lifted her up and she toppled into tbee straw, her father's sword clattering against her calves. Constantine, Domhnall instructed, as the boy made to follow her, "You're with me." It was the last time Constantine would ever see his father. That proto-dawn, where their morning sunlight was just a dull, grey gloaming of light, dull and wet, warm but soaking drizzle, was an image which would stay with Osrith for the rest of her life. 88,888,888. 30th of October 899. Very quickly, but with no ceremony, the thick, iron-studded gates pulled open for Osrith. Without hesitation, she stepped within the castle, her feet quickly regaining a muscle memory learned over months and years of service to King. And there she was, Osrith thought. She must be aging, or else it was that little tiny mite who, like a parasite, was draining her of goodness. Because, of course, it had died within months of their escape over to Malmuir of the Uineals. Domhnall was, now, of course, the king. Across the courtyard they went, the rain still pouring as her feet trod their wide cobblestones. Osrith felt a fluttering in her stomach as she recalled Constantine's cousin, and she stumbled a little. The guard helped her to steady herself and guided her to the side door of the royal rooms. Candles glowed brightly in holders as water poured out of Osrith's clothes. The guard, however, merely stepped to one side of the torrent, and guided her to the door. "The king is willing to grant you an audience, Osrith of Bibbenberg," the guard said. "You must be important to him to bring him from his bed, whose health is failing." "She is." A voice, one she recognized, echoed in the darkness. If she had not hessed his voice, Osrith might have not recognized King's general. Not black hair now verraded at the back, but grey. Sainid's eyes had, however, not lost their sparkle. "Come," Sainid invited, pushing open the thick, ebony door by its handle. He bent low, to her ear, and whispered, "May I say how happy I am to see you after all this time? Please." Sainid raised his arm in an arc as he gestured towards the throne, but a weary man, whose black hair was curled and uneven. "Osrith?" "Osrith," she declared. "Osrith Lackland." Constantine smiled that crooked smile of his, and instantly the years shrank away, and they were children again. She trying to clean or do it, asked, he tormenting her or pulling her hair. "The king?" Osrith sensed the little girl inside her jerkin had now gone to sleep, and she little sighs of contentment she was feeling on tbee inside of her arm. Indisposed. He up the coast, preparing for a spring campaign. For the Norse who still plague Pitland. I still think of it as Pitland. Dulreader and Pitland have been one for a long time now. No, there is just Alba and Strathclyde. Domhnall's cousin Owain rules the now. Eochaid's betrayal had been Domhnall's gain. Owain is forever in our debt. Owain? Who worked with the horses? The wriggling in her shirt which had begun again stopped her from laughing. "What is it you want if Domhnall?" Constantine, his voice cold as the rain outside, got to the point, directly. "I am his depute, you can tell me, Osrith. Or." His mind considered. "I think Edra suits you much better, Edra Uhtred's daughter. If you require land, or contracts, in the disputed territory, you can take them, they are yours." Their eyes locked. Unusually, it was Osrith who turned away. "I knew you'd come back to me. Edra Uhtred's daughter of Bibbenberg." "Uhtred, my brother, lives." Constantine appeared to be consider this. She had told him once before that she was the sister of Uhtred of Bibbenberg, shortly before she had fled for good. It seemed he had listened. "Take them." He passed a sheaf of parchments from his lap into Sainid's, who brought them over, swiftly. "They are yours, I say. You are here, he is not. He has lands in Fairford, so I hear." Constantine looked at her. His eyes had not lost their sparkle, the same grey eyes, sparklingly bright like the Moray Firth on early summer's morning. "I have come with a proposal." "A marriage proposal? For Domhnall?" Constantine laughed. "I am afraid he is already married. Though that union has brought forth no issue." "For you, then, Constantine, as you deputize? You do not know that Meriad is dead? She did give issue, I have my son and daughters too. They will like you, Edra. Mary Ed? Osrith remembered how she hated that girl, for what she had thrown, no matter that she was the niece of High King of Ireland. No. A proposal that might claim on the land, the people, the goods are to be yours. But, my dear Osrith. Constantine got out of the throne, pacing over to her, mockingly, in the way Osrith used to, when he was a boy and had found an interesting animal in the grounds, or had found someone to trick. Half of her wanted him to hold her the way he used to. Then, she realized he was staring at the movement in her tunic. Osrith unbuckled it, holding the little child, bare and cold, out for him to see. Constantine pursed his lips and said not been for a time. Saynid, flanking the throne, nodded to a guard. This child needs a home, Osrith said clearly and firmly. For, Osrith had escaped Bibbenberg and Sven, and Kjartan had taken Thyro instead. She had taken this baby's her mother from a fire set by men who hounded her for her faith. Thyra Ragnarsdottir's fate had been tied inextricably to that of Osrith's. Constantine looked at her again. He wanted to believe her, she could see that. But, of course, he knew her. He knew she could lie. Of course, they called it storytelling then, long ago. She needs a home, she needs a baptism. To her left, the guard to whom Saynid had whispered handed Osrith a fine, wool blanket. Unused to babies, she did her best, and nuzzled baby Edra to her nipple once again. The tiny, copper-haired head showed itself as its owner got to work on the ready supply of milk. And you? Constantine asked. I need to be here too. If you accept my proposal, then she would need me. Constantine looked at the baby. Then, his pale, grey eyes flickered up to Osrith, coming close and holding on to her shoulders. He bent his head to the side of her face. You put a hole in my very soul when you disappeared. Osrith, he managed. I never thought I would see you again. Is to Mogra, Osrith. She lowered her head. But she was not ashamed. The love Constantine meant was that bond of togetherness, of oneness. It was not the joy of happy equals that she had with Finan. And Domhnall has not yet managed a united Ulster-Alba kingdom. The Uineel would have something to say to that, Constantine laughed. And those bastard Alaim. But there is something in what you say. A united Alba. So. Constantine spoke to the head of young Edra. Your good mother, may God keep her, was persecuted for being a good Christian. I thought Wessex was Christian. Osrith felt her mouth open. How did you know where I was? Osrith asked, choosing not to correct Constantine over Thyra's faith. I have as many spies as Alfred, maybe more. I knew you would go looking for Utad sooner or later. Alfred is dead. Yes, Constantine replied. Ethelfled is influential in Mercia, I understand. Edward is strong, though young. Osrith shuddered a little at the mention of the former Etheling. She had made a habit of lying with heirs to the throne, as Constantine knew well. But there was a breeze in the throne room. That be the cause of her quaking, Osrith told herself, and she held young Edra closer to her chest. So, what is she to be baptized? Edra, Osrith said. It suits her well. May I ask why? I was sorry to hear about Mary Ed dying, Osrith lied, changing the subject. You have a son? Why this child? Constantine asked, undeterred. She needs safety and care. Why? God knows. I have no reasons. From her cloak, Osrith held out a bag. Virtually untouched since she had found it in the skiff in Bibbenberg, and with more that she had added to its weight, she held out a huge bag of silver. Constantine took the bag, his eyes narrowing in suspicion. Who is she? No one important. Her mother was burning to death in a house and I got her out. But she died. I took her to Ohila and she birthed Edra. Osrith's mind flashed back that night. Allah had told her to stand away, but Osrith had drawn the curtain back. She had held Thyro upright, her body over her shoulder and braced her body, which was automatically expelling the child, despite her unconscious miss from the smoke and the heat, her body a mass of old, deep scars, one that pushed the little bundle she had in her arms out into the world. Osrith saw his gaze. Constantine did not leave her. Yet, he weighed the bag in his hands. Little Edra may be someone who is valuable to him. No loss and potential much to gain was the deal she was offering. Osrith sighed. She knew making it good odds would be appealing to Constantine. Edra was now off the nipple, and she sighed, nuzzling back down to sleep. You would give her your old name? That will keep her. Osrith nodded to the money again. This will keep her a year, said Constantine, dismissively. But Osrith had anticipated this. And information, for reclamation of lands of Northumbria. He licked his lips almost imperceptibly. But Osrith noticed. He used to do that when he was young, when he wanted something, or had tricked someone out of something. So I get you again, Osrith? He asked, looking over her body. Yes. Yet, the right course of action, Osrith considered, would be to write to Boka and tell her she had his daughter safe. The man would be beside himself with grief for Thyra. Their child might be a balm that would soothe some of his suffering. Her safety would cost her, though. Osrith closed her eyes and pictured Chester, with the bishop's wife whoring herself with anyone who would pay. Uhtred had left the gold belonging to Aethelstan and Ethelfled to do that. There was a decent amount of gold in that bag as well as silver. She had meant to flee then, when she had secured her brother in Bibbenburg. Uhtred of Bibbenburg. She had two brothers called Uhtred. But Uhtred Ragnarsson had not chosen to go north but to remain by Ethelfled's side. Oaths, she thought to herself, looking out of the window at the very beach next to the moray that she had made hers, to Constantine when she had been 13 and she wanted nothing more in the world than him. Domnall has sworn to return me to my uncle, Osrith reminded Constantine. That will not be necessary. He need not know. But he may? He may remember. His temper is worse than you remember, Osrith. But don't go to Bibbenburg. Here is nothing to gain there. Nothing to gain, Count? Why, there is everything. Why should my lands stop at the two-eyed? We are natural heirs to the wall. It says so in the annals of Rome. Emperor Hadrian did build the wall. It was you who told me that. Your uncle occupies land which is my ancestral right. Will you seek to do this, once you are king? Asked Osrith. There are families there, long settled. I should hate to hear they have been displaced. No, Osrith. I do not know if ever I will, when I become king. The Norse still plague us. That had not changed, then. Nor had the man standing beside Constantine though, after 20 years, with the exception of streaks of grey at his temples. Sainid twinkled at her. But the place has changed. Dunnottar had moved on, its people war-weary and afraid. You say a year that money will keep her? Constantine looked at the coins, then nodded. In that case, I offer you, that is, I offer to Domnall, my life given over to espionage in your service. I will spy for you, Constantine. In exchange, you will look after this child as if she is your own. Constantine turned. Then, placing the money next to the throne. Your life to spy for me, Osrith? For to bring up this anonymous child? Yes, Osrith affirmed. Unless you will release me from my oath to you, I spy for you.